electro. One, two, three, four, five. Five? Well, that's absolutely correct. I know you enjoy these, and I'm really going to try to give you a nice pleasure out of these.
Good evening, I'm Andy. Well, I wasn't aware of what all the talks before me were going to be about, but there seems to be a lot of overlap. I'd like to thank Matt for getting people excited about hacking and building things, Adam for his kind offer to 3D print everything we need, and Nick, there's a lot of overlap between what we're going to do and what you're going to do, but the collaboration is good. So anyway, I'm the third Andy. Andrew Fisher gives his apologies. He couldn't be here tonight, which basically means I can say whatever I like and then he has to deliver. And we have the second, the incomparable Andy Kitchen just in the front here, who might pop up at any moment and take over the presentation, if you're lucky. So, last year, Andrew Fisher organised NodeBots. Myself and other people helped him out, and some people did go home with robots. And if you have a NodeBot, please bring it again this year and try and do some more stuff with it. And at the same time, well, after we gave our NodeBots workshop, Andy Kitchen spoke about machine learning. So he took us through deep learning, deep dreaming with inceptionism. He showed us about a machine learning program was learning how to play Atari Space Invaders, I think it was, yep. And also he did a part of his presentation was about a JavaScript browser machine learning robot that's basically trying to navigate a maze and avoid poison pills and find food. And we looked at that and going, well, hang on, we've got a machine learning virtual robot and we're making a physical robot. It'd be nice to try and put these two things together. And some of that happened during BuzzConf, but since then a lot has happened. With Andy and a bunch of other people, we've basically taken this little NodeBot, which is the bottom half of this, and on top we've put a USB battery pack so it goes for a while, and a Raspberry Pi 3, and that's running Google TensorFlow, and it's doing it's taking in vision from the camera and doing road line following, so sort of a very simplistic self-driving robot. So that was something we were just building on as enthusiasts. And Andy's company's then held a lot of machine learning presentations and readings and workshops. It's been fantastic. But then what it led into is work opportunities. Andy's company does consulting around machine learning. I was working for a company where we're building drones that we want to send up, basically get video and telemetry in real time, take it through a data center, and hopefully do useful things for the community, like detect sharks or find search and rescue or asset inspection. And so basically out of BuzzConf for the last year, I've had a fantastic time both as a hobbyist and as a professional. So if that doesn't encourage you to come along, I don't know what will. So what are we going to do this year? Last year we ran a workshop and people built their robot, and there's I guess an opportunity to play more, but there's a whole lot of people that I guess we weren't able to address. All the people didn't come to the workshop. And so what we thought we'd like to do this year is try to connect up the whole camp. So instead of having an Internet of Things, have an Internet of Tents, and hopefully gather sensor data around how warm is your tent or how cold is your tent, and how loud is the band, any other things that we can instrument the camp with. And what we're hoping to do is allow people to play with that throughout the weekend, regardless of your skill level. So there'll be some people who have obviously got some experience in advanced skills, Nick and Adam and Andy and others. We're going to welcome you to help us run this if you've got the time and inclination. There'll be people who attend the workshop, but the people we're really hoping to reach out is all the other people who are attending BuzzConf who maybe don't have programming experience or they're doing something else at the time, and basically say this will be running throughout the whole weekend. There'll be servers and sensors that you can play with, and all you need to be able to do is have a phone and download an app and have a bit of a play about programming. And so that's the everyone else. So the rough schedule is on Friday we'll set this up with some Wi-Fi access points, so the sensors like the ESP8266s have got something to connect to. Put a few sensors around the camp, and anyone who wants to help us out with that has got experience. That'd be fantastic. On the Saturday we'll run the workshop, and then hopefully people playing around with this is on the Sunday we can have a bit of a show and tell, and so hopefully people will surprise us with what they've been able to build. That's Yeah, there's the obvious things I just mentioned before, like what's the temperature of the camp. But hopefully people will bring their own skills and their interests. It might be around biohacking, or something like that. Maybe it's measuring your heartbeat and putting that information in. And so, after you're doing all this rave rap dancing, how long does it take your heart rate to go back to something sensible? I know, surprises. But that's roughly our agenda, is to be able to, for Andrew, myself and others, to be available throughout the weekend to collaborate with others like Nick on the ESP stuff, and to just generally be available to help you hack the camp, hack your tent. So architecturally, this is what it looks like. You've got up the top is a bunch of sensors and actuators. One of our ideas is like with a little servo motor. If you basically put a little dial on it, it becomes a gauge. And so you can take with a piece of A4 paper, you can just get a pen and just scribble on and make your own gauge. It could be a temperature gauge, it could be decibels, it could be how good you're feeling, and then you'll be able to control the servo and the dial and just be able to have like a barometer of information. So it's nice to make it sort of really low tech, really craft-like. And so that's all your sensors and actuators. Then there's a server called MQTT, which is basically a fancy way of saying it sends and receives messages. And so all the messages from the camp can come to this server, and they can then be, so you basically publish these messages, like how hot is it, or how loud is it, or how many people have walked past. And then you can then put that into Influx database, which is time series. So that basically is the history of the event. So everything is captured that way, but hopefully not in a creepy way, because we'll all be able to only put in what we're interested in, and also everyone can see it, as opposed to the creepy things that go in the world where someone also owns a database and you've got no idea what they've captured about you. So it's meant to be about by people for people, as opposed to by corporations for corporations. Now down the bottom is what's called Node-RED, and I'll show you a little bit more about Node-RED, but that basically gives you a drop and drag environment. So you can connect up sensors, you can visualize what's going on with sensors without having to be a programmer. But however, if you are a programmer, you can jump in with your favorite language, be it JavaScript or Python, C, assembler if you're keen, and you can augment the information you're getting from these sensors and do interesting things with it. And then for user interfaces, just your mobile phone. So you should be able to wander around the camp and just check on your mobile phone, see what's going on. Earlier chatting to Adam, one of the thoughts was if he is fortunate enough to bring all these 3D printers, if they're busy, you might want to go, is that 3D printer free? And rather than having to walk halfway across the camp to find out if it's free or not, we'll hopefully be able to instrument the 3D printers. And we're basically chatting about, well, how could we do this? So one idea was to basically put an Arduino with an accelerometer on it, and if the 3D printer's rocking, then it's still busy. But if another way was to basically have a Raspberry Pi with a camera and just see if there's any basic motion detection. If the printer head's moving, then it's still busy. But the idea is that it's up to people's imagination as to how they capture this information and what they do with it. So in a little bit more detail, that's some of the technology. So there'll be servers. These can run on something like a Raspberry Pi. So if you have a Raspberry Pi, bring it along. We'll help you install the servers for basically for handling the messages, storing the data, and then manipulating the data. User interfaces like Node UI give you basically a drop and drag way of presenting gauges and sparkline graphs and buttons to push and things like that. You don't have to program, but if you want to, you can program in JavaScript using the NodeBots technology which we bought last year for the robots, which is basically just using JavaScript to wrap objects. And if that's not your cup of tea, you can use Python or Ruby, Java, it doesn't really matter. And then for sensors and actuators, we'll be bringing along a bunch of ESPs, which fortunately Nick has saved me, he's done a much better presentation than I would, but that's your basic ESP. Back in 1990s, when I was hanging out with some people from Sun Microsystems, they basically said, when you can get a connected microprocessor for $2, it will change everything. And, well, 25 years later, it's true. When you can basically take a $2 microprocessor and connect anything to the internet, you can do incredible things. So that's that processor. When you take an ESP8266 and put it in a weatherproof box and add a solar panel and lights, hang on, this might actually work, hang on. Yep, I can thank John Spencer for that. Everything should have blinky lights, so we'll have no one will get any sleep because all their tents will be blinking. So this has got a humidity sensor and temperature sensor and that stuff in a weatherproof box and solar, so it'll be interesting to see how long this lasts, but John Spencer, we have John to thank for that. And oh, that's nasty, sorry. This is a a Raspberry Pi which has got a full flight controller on it. So this Raspberry Pi knows which way it's pointing. It's got GPS. It knows where it's at. It knows how high it is. It's got a camera, so it can do vision feed into one of Andy's insane machine learning things. It's more mind blowing. Is probably a better word. So you can go a fair way for not a lot of money to create a full instrument package that you could basically stick anywhere. Hopefully for good, not evil. So this is what Node-RED looks like. It's on the left-hand side, you've got a whole lot of blocks that represent inputs and outputs. You've got things for connecting up to web servers, Facebook, Twitter. So basically, you can do something like drag in a temperature sensor, then drag across a little bit of logic to say, is that temperature above 30 degrees? Then drag across another node which represents Twitter, and hey, if it's above 30 degrees, tweet someone, get me a pina colada or whatever you need. And on the right, whenever you select a box, it gives you a whole lot of information about how to use that node. So this just runs in your web browser. You point your web browser at the Node-RED server, and off you go. When you double-click on one of these objects, you get a little user interface that allows you to do things like give it a name. This is for generating random numbers, so you can basically say how often you want that number to be generated, what you want that number range to be, and it's the same for all these objects. Basically, just click, drop, and drag, and configure it. And if you're really keen, some of these objects can also do a little bit of JavaScript. So it's like 3 or 4 lines of JavaScript that basically takes information off a GPS unit and sends it on its way to be displayed. One of the modes is called Node-RED user interface, and just simply by drop and dragging, say, I've got my temperature. I'd like to hook that up to a graph, and so basically just drop and drag the temperature sensor, drop and drag the graph, hook them together. Point your web browser and you've basically got a graph for yourself immediately. Or you can hook it up to a gauge or a slider, buttons for input. So basically what we hope to be able to do is by providing this hardware and software infrastructure, people will be able to experiment with capturing data from the camp and doing things with it. Just down the bottom right here, you can actually see that's a little node that basically gives you a Google map, and so you can basically say, put things on there, like if you love spiders, you can say, well, show me where all the spiders are at BuzzConf. There will be several. So that's another picture of some of the sensors. So that's the ESP, Raspberry Pi, a couple more ESPs. We'll bring a bunch of sensors and actuators as well, and I recommend you go and raid Nick's barrel of fun. So these sensors will be either connected via Wi-Fi or USB. Or if you want to just use your laptop, you can also it can generate and consume data as well. Here's some ideas for several things you might like to do. We'll see how we go with power. Rick's informed me there'll be mains power everywhere, but I know that doesn't strike me as that's just too easy. It's always fun to try and no, having mains power is great, but really with I think things is you've got to assume that power isn't going to be somewhere convenient. Like if you're trying to do wearables, you don't have mains power on your body, so experimenting with how long can you have a sensor run using a battery, or what can you really do with solar panels, I think is a valuable thing, because many of the more interesting and tricky applications just don't, mains power isn't part of the equation. So we'll see how we go. Yeah, so I'd like really inviting people to come prepared. We'll bring an amount of hardware and software and set up and be there to assist you. Bring along all these creative thoughts about what could you possibly gather in terms of information. How could you use that? I highly recommend chatting to someone like Andy to chat at machine learning. Machine learning is really about recognising patterns. And so if we generate enough information, hopefully we can try and look for some interesting patterns in that information. And we're trying to make this as low barrier to entry as possible, but there's depth there. So no matter what level of expertise and experience you have, I'm sure there'll be something challenging for you to do. So hopefully you'll bring a laptop. If you've got hardware you've got from previous workshops or things you've played with and want some help with, please bring those along. Arduinos and so on. If you've got a USB power brick, that can be handy as well. And if you've got robots, we'll see if we can connect it all up. So thanks for your time. That was the BF Robots guys. They had an intriguing mailbox that looked like it needed to be fed more often, or maybe it was. So thank you.